That's how the IRIS-T works, the system Sweden provided the missiles for.
My stats are 99% of aerial targets hit.
These specific missiles are part of the Swedish air shield. After all, Sweden isn't just handing over some outdated gear from the warehouses to the Ukrainians, like other countries often do, but the most modern weaponry, which is often the gold standard in its class. Why? Because only war determines everything, no matter what the engineers and generals might think. Sometimes everything gets turned upside down. For example, that's how the Ukrainian experience forced the Swedish army to change its air defense doctrine. Changing doctrine is serious business. Could it be that the IRIS-T SAMs don't quite meet the challenges facing Sweden? And what about the Swedish Gripen fighters, which are integrated into the joint NATO air defense system and also carry IRIS-T missiles? You're about to find out. And along with that, you'll get an exclusive look at a brand new air defense weapon that the Swedish army is set to receive in 2026, and why their decision to send the most cutting-edge technology to Ukraine isn't just generosity, it's strategy. But here's what makes this story truly historic. Ukraine won't just be receiving this system. Ukraine will be the first country in the world to use it in real combat, not on a training range, not in a simulation, in a live war zone, against real targets, under real pressure. That's the kind of baptism by fire no engineer can replicate in a lab. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why that matters. Not just for Ukraine, but for every NATO country watching from the sidelines. Analyst reports usually contain a lot of technical nuances, but we're interested in the main thing. What's wrong with the IRIS-T SAMs in Ukraine? So the first lesson of the war in Ukraine that the Swedish army learned is the necessity to protect not just military bases, but civilian infrastructure, cities, and energy hubs from mass drone and missile attacks. Can the IRIS-T handle these threats? Sort of. But the IRIS-T isn't a silver bullet or the main player here, because when a country gets hammered by cruise missiles escorted by 400 to 500 drones in a single go, like it happens in Ukraine, well, you can see for yourself. The thing is, there are so many drones coming in from different angles that the air defense needs to consist of hundreds of launchers. Considering the price of the IRIS-T SAMs, as well as the cost of their missiles, that's just not feasible. Just imagine, the price of an IRIS-T missile, depending on the range, starts at $450,000. That's cheaper than a Patriot missile, but way more expensive than a Russian Shahed, which costs up to $50,000. If your interceptor missile is pricier than the Shahed, you lose the war of attrition even if you shoot down every single target, meaning your defeat is just a matter of time. Besides the price, there's another problem. The IRIS-T missile works great against aircraft, helicopters, cruise missiles, targets with a strong heat signature. But the Shahed has a small engine, so a successful lock-on by the IRIS-T's infrared seeker depends on the distance and weather conditions during the attack. However, Sweden has the Gripen. Experience shows that Ukraine has done a decent job integrating its Soviet aircraft, as well as American F-16s and French Mirage 2000s, into the air defense system. But what about the Gripen? This fighter isn't a lone wolf in the sky. It was designed as part of a network. In Swedish air defense, the Gripen plays the role of a quick reaction interceptor. Its main advantage is mobility. This bird is capable of taking off from a highway. All it needs is up to 800 meters of decent road. This tactic works beautifully in Ukraine, where specific highway sections with reinforced pavement and specially prepared sites are used as jump airfields. As soon as the first Gripens show up in the Ukrainian skies, thanks to our connections, we'll get footage of them in action immediately. So hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, and you definitely won't miss it. Sweden's roads are in good order. Specific highway sections are also prepped, because this is a key element of the country's defense strategy, aimed at aviation survival in case the main air bases get destroyed. So the Gripens can disperse all over Sweden. Taking out the entire aircraft fleet with a single missile strike at 4 a.m., like Russia tried to do in Ukraine, is practically impossible. And what about the armament? How does the JAS-39 Gripen take down targets? The Swedish fighter is one of the most universal aviation platforms in the world. Thanks to its open software architecture, It's capable of carrying practically any modern Western air-to-air missiles, including expensive IRIS-T missiles. Is there an alternative? Yes, for example, the Meteor. That's the long arm. This missile will reach a fighter, an AWACS plane, a bomber, or a cruise missile at a distance of up to 200 kilometers. Can a Meteor shoot down a Shahed? Easily, but that's like shooting sparrows with golden bullets. The price of a single MBDA Meteor missile is roughly $2.5 million. Putin will be thrilled if Sweden spends that kind of money to destroy a single Shahed. Maybe there's something cheaper? The Gripen is also integrated with medium-range AM-120 AMRAAM missiles. It's cheaper than the Meteor, more mass-produced, and has been used in NATO for decades. Reliable stuff. However, it's only cheaper for the USA. But to their Swedish partners, the states push it at a price of $2.4 million. That's not a joke. That's business. So what's a Gripen pilot supposed to do when he spots a Shahed? That leaves the good old Mauser BK-27. It's a 27mm revolver-type aircraft cannon. It fires up to 1,700 rounds per minute. Crazy little thing. But only Ukrainian pilots know how to shoot down Shaheds with guns. It's a very risky mission because after hitting the UAV, a cloud of debris forms that can damage the aircraft. Ukraine has already suffered losses because of this. That's exactly why a territorial air defense system appeared in the Swedish army. This is Sweden's new doctrine. We're talking about mobile fire groups for fighting drones, similar to the Ukrainian ones. Here's how it works.
I'm a gunner for the RBS-70 complex. The tactic is as follows. We're in position and waiting for a target. When it appears, we shoot it down.
The RBS-70 system works on the laser beam riding principle, which fundamentally distinguishes it from the Stinger. The maximum range is up to 9,000 meters, and the altitude is up to 5,000 meters. Ideal parameters against strike UAVs like the Shahed. The missile has a laser radiation receiver in the tail section, so as long as the operator keeps the target in the crosshairs, the missile stays on the laser path right until impact. It's very hard to confuse it. However, there's a problem. Although the price of a single missile for the RBS-70 is much cheaper than other missiles, it's still more expensive than a Shahed, $150,000. That's why the Swedish army ordered a more suitable weapon against Shaheds, the Tridon Mark II. This specific system is supposed to become the main player against strike UAVs. The first operator of this Swedish system will be the Ukrainian army. And this is another innovation of the Swedish General Staff. Until a weapon undergoes a baptism by fire in war, it isn't considered reliable. The first combat use of the Tridon Mark II will take place in the coming weeks, because according to some sources, these systems have already arrived in Ukraine. Here's what we managed to find out about this system. At first glance, the Tridon Mark II is just a cannon on a truck. But actually, things are more complicated. Firepower is provided by the Bofors L-70 cannon. Yeah, the very same one that's installed on the CV-90 IFVs. The Bofors L-70, old school. 40 millimeters of argument, 300 rounds per minute. But even an old gun can be given a cool edge if you load it with these awesome programmable munitions. A well-known mechanism works here. Right before the shot, the shell passes through an induction programmer, a special ring on the barrel where the shell gets the command to detonate a certain amount of time after firing. But that's not all. Inside every single one of those shells, there's a surprise. After it detonates at a distance of roughly 1 meter from the target, a cloud of tungsten balls forms. The kill zone increases tens of times over, so a short burst of 2 to 4 rounds is enough to destroy a drone. And what about accuracy? Here, the radar and fire control system are responsible for that. The radar sees the target from kilometers away. The computer calculates the target's speed, its trajectory, and the flight time of the shell to the point where it needs to detonate to create a cloud of shrapnel. Boom, and the job is done. Moreover, it's done in an economically rational way because each shell costs up to $5,000. At that price, a war of attrition isn't profitable for Russia. Why Russia specifically? Previously, Sweden conducted military exercises using fictional scenarios against fictional countries, like Bogoland or something similar. But after the Russian aggression against Ukraine, the situation changed. Now the Swedish armed forces openly discuss Russia and its capabilities, not some made-up country. And although Sweden and Russia don't share a land border, however, there is a maritime border established between the countries in the Baltic Sea. Flying over the sea allows drones to go literally a few meters above the water, which makes detecting them with coastal radars difficult due to clutter from the waves. That's why Sweden is learning to meet them on land. The Tridon Mark II isn't just an AA gun from the past, but a modern and relatively cheap tool for countering mass attacks by Russian UAVs. So, the Ukrainian war has essentially become a testing ground for Sweden. Every missile or shell provided, every tank or IFV, is an investment in the power of the Swedish army. We hope you found this interesting. But if you want to see more action, then in these playlists, you'll definitely find something that triggers an adrenaline rush. Stay safe and support Ukraine.